Hey, welcome to Pretty Well. Do you want to get to the root causes of your health concerns? Do you find yourself Googling, why do I feel this way? And looking for solutions to feel great again? I'm Lisa Smith, and I too felt exhausted, achy, and like I was aging too quickly. I wanted to look and feel like myself again and spent way too much time and money going to practitioners, even functional medicine practitioners, and not getting results. So I became a functional medicine practitioner myself and learned how to identify and fix root causes to health issues. The good news is there is so much you can do to reclaim your wellness. In this podcast, you'll find quick, simple, and evidence-based guidance that you can easily fit into your day so your energy will be soaring, your mind clear, and your skin will return to its beautiful glow. Let's dive in. Hey, welcome back to the Pretty Well podcast. I'm Lisa Smith, and today I cannot wait to bring you our guest. I'm talking with Kat Vong, and Kat has become a friend. I was on Kat's podcast, Well Done. So Well Done is a podcast at the intersection of wellness, beauty, and modern living. After battling chronic and severe eczema for years, Kat set out to create conversations and solutions that go deeper than quick fixes, exploring what it really takes to feel good in your body and have a life aligned with your values. With a background in beauty marketing and e-commerce strategy, Kat is now channeling that experience into developing both a beauty brand she wished had existed during her own skincare challenges and her podcast. Through her podcast and her brand, Kat is dedicated to helping women look and feel better from the inside out. Welcome, Kat. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Lisa. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. Kat, tell us about your journey, about this severe and chronic eczema you were dealing with, and how that has now become part of your mission and your passion.
Yeah, so I had pretty bad eczema growing up. It would come up on my hands, my elbows, behind my legs, but it was manageable in the sense that I would go to the doctor with my parents and they would prescribe topical steroids. The rashes would go away and then ultimately come back. But as a child and a teenager, I didn't think too much about it. It had become so part of my story to use these creams to address this problem. I didn't know that there was maybe something potentially underneath that could be causing all this inflammation. Fast forward to 2017, when I was getting ready to get married, I was working a lot and I was very stressed because I was planning a wedding. And I started getting these intense flare-ups all over my body. And this is 3 weeks before my wedding, mind you. So I had quite literally an open wound on the back of my head. If your listeners are familiar with eczema, there are different types. There's something called weeping eczema, where the wound itself is an open wound and it's starting to pus. It's definitely not pretty. And that was happening on the back of my head. And so I had 3 weeks before the wedding. So I also had rashes on my arms and my wedding dress was sleeveless. So I was just in this state of, oh my gosh, I'm getting married. What do I do? I go to the doctor and he told me, yeah, you have some eczema, psoriasis on your scalp. Your eczema's just gotten really bad, probably from the stress. So he prescribed more topicals. He also gave me a shot of prednisone, an injection of steroids, as well as a 1-week course of oral steroids. So I had 3 different types of steroids leading up to my wedding.
Oh my gosh.
Fortunately, those steroids worked, but that was also the first time that I had so much, because leading up to that, it was all topical. This was the first time that I had the ingested steroids and the shot. The rashes went away for my wedding. Everything was fine for a solid year after that. And going into 2018, I started seeing the flare-ups again. They weren't as bad as leading up to the wedding, but I was definitely noticing that they were on my neck. They were starting to appear on my cheeks, on my forehead, everywhere. So I went to the doctor. He gave me another round of oral steroids and also a shot. And me thinking, because at this time I wasn't well researched in this, I didn't know that going to get the steroids, what that meant for my body from a system standpoint, right? Because steroids are immunosuppressants. It's not addressing the issue. All it was doing was masking these symptoms. So after that episode, I started noticing that after the few weeks that the rashes had cleared up, they would start to come back. And they were coming back actually worse than before I got the steroids. It started to snowball. For the next several years, the flare-ups would come and go, but they would be worse than before. And at that point, I was still using the topical steroids and using them pretty aggressively. The more steroids you use for these problems, the more you have to use to get the same result. So again, fast forward to 2021 was when I had the worst episode that I've ever had. My entire body exploded in red rashes. My face swelled up to like double its size. I looked like a pumpkin. It was so swollen. And I could barely open my eyes. It was that bad. I go to the dermatologist again. She prescribes me steroids because she said, you really do need to take this. So at that point, I followed her directions, but there was a part of me that was now really questioning what is going on with my body. Do I need to look into this further? And long story short, because we can get into it, but I started looking into potential reasons for the flare-ups, and I also found out about something called topical steroid withdrawal (TSW), because several weeks before this episode, I had decided that I was going to stop using all these topical steroids. It was getting to the point where every week I would slather on a bunch, it would clear up, and then it would all come back. So I was like, I think I need to stop using this stuff, not really knowing that I should actually stop using this stuff. I researched it, and there's this whole community around topical steroid withdrawal, which is if you have been using topical steroids for many years, for prolonged periods of time, and you stop, your body goes through this withdrawal process, which actually looks a lot like eczema. Your skin starts to peel, it starts to flake. It's extremely, I was sleeping on towels for a long time because overnight my skin would shed and it would shed and I would ooze. I'm sorry if this is too much information, but I would literally
Why?
ooze
No,
all over my bed. And
man.
yeah, it was a horrible time, but the story ends very well. I'm healed now. It was 2 years of torture before I started to really see a difference in all the things that I started doing to heal.
Wow. And that had to be painful too.
It was extremely painful. I had to wear gloves overnight so that I wouldn't scratch, but ultimately that didn't work because in the middle of the night, I would just toss off my gloves. There's a company called the Eczema Clothing Company, and they sell clothes specifically for people who deal with severe eczema. So I actually had a full set. I had this eczema scarf that you could wrap around your neck so you wouldn't scratch it. I had eczema clothes, eczema top that was a very lightweight, breathable cotton fabric. I was all in it because there was nothing else I could do other than try to prevent myself from making it worse. That was when I started doing the research and figuring out that there were other issues at play that could be contributing.
So where did you begin to figure out what do I do? Obviously I am having to take more and more steroids and apply more and more, and now it's getting out of control. How did you begin figuring out what you had to do?
Yeah, well, the first thought that I had was maybe it was the products I was using and it was causing more irritation because this was me, as you mentioned in my intro, I had worked in the beauty industry. I was working at a beauty brand. My idea of beauty and my understanding of skincare was all very topical focused, right? I was thinking, oh, I need to switch out some of my skincare products. I need to buy products that speak specifically to eczema. So I was getting lotions that said for really sensitive skin or creams that are steroid free, but creams for very dry, flaky skin, not knowing that the topical solutions weren't the answer. So I tried that route. I was doing things like oatmeal baths. I was getting in every night into a bath full of oatmeal, which helped alleviate some of the itchiness, but didn't ultimately help. At a certain point, I had a thought that there must be something going on with my body, and I need to look into that. Like maybe it's a food allergy. So I ended up taking one of those take home food sensitivity tests, which highlighted a bunch of things that I was sensitive to. But at that point, I was thinking, well, if I'm sensitive to everything, is this accurate, right? I need to go see a professional. So I found a functional practitioner like yourself. I just Googled her. And I think it was on her website. She said that she helps people who have chronic skin problems and things like that. So I found her. And, we had a 2 hour long interview about my life, my lifestyle, everything under the sun. And she put me through a bunch of tests. So I did a toxin test, the food sensitivity test. I also did a gut test, like a stool test, blood test. And Then when I got my results, it all started to become more clear about potentially what was happening with me.
Mhm.
And do you want me to go into that? What?
Yeah, people, they go to the dermatologist and they'll say, could it be my food? Sometimes dermatologists are getting savvy and saying, like, give up gluten or something. But they are often told, no, it's nothing you're eating or doing. You're just prone to it, that it's genetic or it's idiosyncratic. So, yes, tell us what
Right.
you found.
Yeah. So the biggest thing, well, there are multiple angles here, but one of the biggest surprising things was that my toxin report was showing levels of toxicity that even my practitioner was surprised by. Like it blew her mind. I had extreme heavy metals in my body, like uranium, arsenic, other heavy metals, extreme levels of toxins that are usually found in beauty and personal care products, likely from being an avid user of beauty and personal care products. So things like parabens and phthalates were really high. Also had some mold. So her explanation was at some point, my body had become so overloaded with these toxins. My liver was probably not able to detoxify as it should because the liver is your detoxification organ. Because of that, the toxic burden was likely manifesting itself in my skin. One part was the toxins. The second part was the gut. So my gut was at an extremely poor state. She said that I had a lot of inflammation there. I had leaky gut. I didn't have SIBO yet, but she said that the markers were showing that it was likely that I could have SIBO if I continued along that path, and also other biomarkers for gluten sensitivity in there.
Mhm.
And so leaky gut was a part of it. The first two things that we had to do was first remove the toxins as much as I could from what I was eating, what I was drinking, my environment. This is literally everything, right? It can include your water, the food, of course, in terms of inflammation. There's toxins in the food you're eating. As an example, mold is often found in cereals, grains, and rice. Um,
Mm.
I also had to overhaul a lot of the beauty and skincare products I was using that have a lot of toxins in them. And so that's the toxin part. In terms of the gut inflammation part, she advised that I should cut out gluten and dairy and all the high inflammatory foods. I
Mhm.
actually cut them out for over a year to start seeing an impact.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was intense. That was the beginning of it. And it didn't immediately work. It takes a long time to start seeing results, especially for me when my whole body was really under attack and had been so inflamed for so long. But I stuck to it and eventually it worked. Just took a long time.
Yeah, I'm guessing your detox pathways were probably congested as well because your body was trying so hard. What I've learned is that when our skin is showing problems, very often it's because the pathways they're congested, they're clogged. The skin is the last way out, and the body is trying to get those toxins out. So I'm guessing you had to do a prolonged detox protocol where you first
Hmm.
kind of pathways and then you specifically start addressing the metals and the phthalates and all the different pieces while at the same time changing your diet and looking at your water and other things. At that time, did you experience more of a flare initially during detoxification or was it just holding steady? What was that like?
It was extreme, and it's hard to say if it was the detoxification or also the fact that I guess this is a form of detoxification of not using the steroids anymore and going through topical steroid withdrawal as well at the same time. Because my skin got aggressively worse, and then it did start to get better. But yeah, there was a period of time where I would literally wake up in the morning and not want to look in the mirror. I didn't look in the mirror for a really long time because I knew what I would see, which would be just inflammation everywhere. And thankfully, this was in 2021 and 2022 was when the world shut down. And so didn't have to go into the office anymore. I was able to turn off my camera for most work meetings and nobody saw me. I had become very isolated and would turn down social invitations, didn't want anyone to see me. Somehow along the way, I got pregnant, though. I got pregnant in early 2022 and ended up having my girls at the end of 2022. But there was a small chunk of time for 6 months where my skin started to get better. And I don't know if it was pregnancy related. There was maybe some hormonal factors involved. I started to see it clear up just for 6 months. Then I had the girls. one of the babies was showing signs of underdevelopment within the womb. I was admitted into the hospital at 32 weeks and was on bed rest. The doctors told me that in order for her to catch up with her sister, they had to give me a steroid injection to get her lungs to develop at the same rate. And you can imagine hearing that news. I was trying to detoxify myself of the steroids, of anything that could be causing more of this inflammation. And he's telling me I have to do this. And of course, I'm a mother. You understand this. Like, I'm going to do it. But I knew you just have this feeling inside that it's going to be like the end. Like, I thought it was the end. For about a week after that, I had the girls. My skin looked good because the steroids were doing their thing. After that, though, the girls were in the NICU. They were premature, so they were in the NICU for 6 weeks. I saw my skin getting progressively, I'm going to cry now because it was such an emotional time. There were times where I had the eczema on my chest and I could not breastfeed them.
No.
But that was the worst of it. It started to get progressively worse and worse and worse. So from end of 2022 to 2023 was I didn't see anyone. Also, the postpartum depression. My whole life was flipped upside down with twins. And then on top of that, the skin problems. And then I found out my mom was very sick at the same time. It was a trifecta of a lot of emotions and difficulty at that time.
Like the perfect storm.
Yeah.
Everything was verging on you. When he told you you needed to take that steroid shot, did it feel a bit like PTSD? Like, I'm just trying to get past this and now I'm having to go back into the fire.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and this is part of my mindset was so much on thinking that the eczema was part of me. And so that this trigger was going to unleash it again. I had put so much of my life revolved around the skin. And so when he told me that I would have to do the steroid shot, for most people, that's nothing. It's just a medication. You're done with it. You do it for your kid. For me, it came with so much mental turmoil and knowing that I had to do it and that I would have to go through this whole episode again. I didn't know how long it would take because I thought I had cleared. There was 6 months of glowing pregnancy skin and I thought I was done with it. And so for him to give that to me, and the doctor was amazing. I mean, UCLA, I delivered at UCLA. The whole team there was incredible. And I had to do this, right? So I don't blame the medical system here, but I was just so worried that things were going to get worse, and they did get worse.
Yeah, especially when you had finally seen the resolution and then you were like, oh my gosh. Mentally, you're thinking, I don't ever want to go back there. Of course, no, it doesn't sound like you were at all saying any negative thing about your doctor. We do as moms whatever we have to do for our babies, but at the same time, I bet that was terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't actually blame, I think a lot of the times when you kind of go through this, a lot of people are like, well, you don't trust doctors anymore. You don't trust dermatologists anymore. That has nothing to do with it. I think the conventional medical system is trained to approach these problems in one way, right? And most patients and consumers don't know the other ways, which is what your approach is, the root cause approach, and looking at what could be a systemic reason for the flare-ups. And so in most cases, a dermatologist who prescribes steroids, most cases that is going to work for the individual. There are these outlier cases like myself where over time it didn't work because originally it did. I want to be very clear that I'm not providing any medical advice to anybody. You should still go see a dermatologist if you have a skin problem as a first step. And then you can decide like other angles if you need to.
That is a great point. We want to take all the tools in the toolbox and not say, well, this one's bad. No, it's not bad. I mean, that can be very effective. Traditional medical care, depending on what the situation is, it's good. But when we're looking at a chronic situation and yours became very chronic and severe, then we have to take a different angle. We have to realize, okay, this is not the best tool in the toolbox for my situation. What are the rest of the tools in the toolbox and how do I apply them to figure this out? Not just eczema, but skin issues are so incredibly common. Eczema, psoriasis, rosacea, acne.
Yeah.
And a lot of times there are very common triggers or common root causes. What's one that's surprising that might not even be a food related, one that surprised you when you were going through this journey?
Yeah. I mean, I think the toxins one is huge. Most people, I mean, we all live in the Western world. We're inundated with toxins left and right. It's not just beauty and personal care products, because I think some people might think, well, I don't use a lot of beauty products, right? But it's your cleaning products, it's in your water, it's in the air you're breathing, it's in the furniture, the couch you're sitting on. It's quite literally everywhere. Just paying attention to that, right? Because there are triggers. Let's say you're wearing clothing that has some irritants on it. That could irritate your skin, and that's more external. But when you're breathing in the toxins, that's a whole other story. So that was surprising to me to learn about toxins and how that was affecting my body. The second surprising trigger is food intolerance, one aspect of the gut health puzzle. I didn't realize that I could normally eat certain things. Growing up, I was able to eat dairy and eggs and all these other foods that are relatively safe for somebody who has a healthy gut. What I didn't know then was what I discovered with the gut health test was my gut was so inflamed and broken that everything that I was eating had become a trigger. It wasn't just having one sensitivity. The gut was in such a poor state that everything had turned into an attacker on my body. So that was interesting for me to find out as well. Stress manifests in so many different ways. You were on my podcast and we talked about stress, but this is one of them. I was going through a very extremely stressful time in my life, new mom to twin girls, finding out my mother was ill, dealing with skin issues that made things worse. The stress of all of it was making it harder for me to heal because there was this constant hum of stress day to day from these other aspects of my life.
All of it then together is this ball of wax that everything exacerbates everything else. So the stress makes the leaky gut worse. The leaky gut and food sensitivities make everything worse. And then not being able to get rid of toxins, that just compounds everything.
Exactly.
When you worked with your practitioner, were you guys able to identify, we think this is primary and this is secondary? Was it the toxin overload and stress that contributed to leaky gut, or did leaky gut look like it started first and then you weren't able to eliminate toxins, or did you not even go that route?
We didn't go that route. The approach that we took was first reducing inflammation so that my body could get to a point of like just a sigh of relief, right? Because you can't heal the problem if you're constantly attacking it. The analogy I love, and I tell this to everybody, it was like you're trying to drain a bathtub, but you keep filling up with the faucet is still running. And you've got the plug out, so you're trying to drain it, but the faucet's on. You're never going to drain the bathtub. Practitioner told me was eliminate the inflammatory foods, try to detox as much as possible so that your gut has a chance to breathe, a sigh of relief. And then we can start thinking about other things that can help, supplements that can help with digestion and other aspects that would contribute to healing. But first, it was eliminating the inflammation.
You've talked about the physical aspect and the emotional aspect of having this terribly stressful time in your life. What do you see as the connection between beauty and energy? How do those all contribute to us feeling and looking our best?
Yeah, I think mindset plays a huge part in beauty and external appearances. For me, I had identified my entire life with having this skin problem. I had always thought to myself, I have eczema, and that's just me. That's part of who I am. So as the eczema got worse, I didn't initially question that belief about myself. I just accepted that things were getting worse, and that was part of who I was. Identity and mindset, in terms of believing that this is part of you, is such a huge part of the healing process. And so, one of the things, along with detoxing and eliminating food triggers, I started meditating a lot. I was a meditator before, but this was a different level. I was doing specific meditations that would help me visualize and imagine myself as someone without eczema, as a new version of myself. I was doing this new identity meditation daily. There were hour-long meditations. Sometimes I would do them twice. So 2 hours of my day trying to meditate this skin problem away. And there were other meditations where you visualize your skin cells repairing themselves and send healing energy to the parts of your body that have the rashes. So I I was doing those types of meditations as well. And I think that combined with all of the physical was what really helped bring this take it to the next level in healing, because I had to rewire my brain to accept that this is no longer my identity. I am not somebody that has eczema. I'm somebody that is able to wear short sleeves in the summer and somebody who doesn't need to worry about how my skin looks. Fast forward, I've been clear for about a year now. And that's me. I can eat the things that I thought I couldn't eat before too. I can eat gluten. I don't always do because, it's still not good for you, but I can safely say that I've gotten to a point where I don't identify with somebody that has eczema. The mindset part of it was huge. And I think in terms of just like, even if you don't have a skin issue, right? Like not a lot of people, not everybody has a chronic skin issue, but the way that you think about yourself and the level of nervous system regulation you have definitely has an external impact on how you look to others. That friend that comes in like a breath of fresh air, is exuding positive energy, just amazing. And you look at them and you're like, you just look like you're glowing. You look so great. What is it? Right. And that is not from expensive skincare most of the time. It's from something that's happening inside.
I have found that, Kat, to be the missing piece, even in functional medicine. I have found that mindset and identity work to be that piece. Lots of times people get with just the physical pieces that you were talking about. Heal the gut, we bring down the inflammation, we remove the toxins, we reset nutrition so that it becomes fueling and not flaming. Those steps are very important and life-changing. But if it's someone with a severe chronic issue, if mindset and identity aren't dealt with, it tends to come back. Those symptoms tend to return. And the power of our brain is, we can't even explain the power of our subconscious. So as you were feeding your subconscious this new healthy version of yourself, your body could begin to let go of some of that old patterning. Did you design those meditations and visualizations yourself, or how did you go about finding those?
Well, interesting you should say that. There are multiple angles here. First, I went to see a hypnotherapist, and she put me, I guess, under hypnosis. And I felt like I didn't feel like there were that many positive, or I guess I wasn't seeing results from the hypnotherapy, but I knew that there was something there around meditation and trying to get into the subconscious. So there is somebody who I started reading his books, Joe Dispenza. And
Yes.
if people are unfamiliar with his story, he's somebody who went through a very serious spinal injury when he was younger. And he was laying in the hospital bed. The doctors told him he would never walk again. And he started doing very long, intense meditations where he was envisioning his body healing, like his spinal column, he was envisioning it, straight again. And then over time, he healed. It's probably not the only thing that healed him, right? But it definitely helped him. And now he's spent his career, he's pioneered the approach of the mind body healing connection. He has a bunch of meditations that I started doing. They're meditations that just help you get out of your body and visualize yourself as a future self. He has also a lot of books. My favorite one is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And then the other one is You Are the Placebo. Those are really great. His meditations really helped me. And then you can just go on YouTube and look up healing meditations. There are so many that you can try. Healing meditations. The ones that I really like are by Jason Stevenson. He has a couple about envisioning the healing process within your body as part of the meditation. And then on the note of, did I record my own meditations? Well, there was a time where I was reading something around, if you record yourself, your subconscious, it'll grasp onto that even more closely because that's your voice. So I wrote down a bunch of affirmations of, my cells are healing. I can wear short sleeves again, all of these affirmations. And I recorded myself saying them, and then I put some music to it. At some point, I did record my own. But I think that also threw me off because I'm not a meditation coach, and I didn't feel like it was as effective as just listening to a Joe Dispenza meditation. So I stopped that. But I did try.
Good point. I've done that. I have some back issues that I'm dealing with, and I have recorded my own voice doing that. It's a different angle. I'm not sure that I like it or don't like it, but I still do it. It's interesting what we do as we're healing. We're looking at all the different tools in the toolbox. So what works with you may be different than me, but these are really helpful for our listeners too.
Yeah. The other thing that I'll mention on the healing and mindset is that there is often a level of desperation when you're healing. You want to get better. And even though you know consciously that you can heal, there's a part of you that is still wondering if you can, questioning that, especially if you're looking in the mirror and you see the visual cues that you have the rashes or whatever it is, you're still signaling to yourself that you are not healed yet. So there is a dichotomy in your brain that is, I want to heal, but I'm not there yet. I want to heal, but I'm not there yet. And it's constant all the time. So then you start to feel anxiety and depression and desperation from this feeling. What I will say is part of the letting go is trying to separate myself from that feeling so that I wouldn't feel the desperation. Meditation helps that. Because on a day-to-day level, your monkey brain is constantly giving you all of these visual cues and signs throughout the day to elevate your stress levels. The meditation just helps you bring yourself back to the present, get out of your body so that you can separate that anxiety and get out of that feeling of desperation that you need to heal.
It's so good. So it takes you again out of that fight or flight, that survival mode, and into, okay, I can just rest. I can get into parasympathetic and just breathe. In what I've been studying on healing, I heard a great illustration. When you decide that you are healing, you're going to heal something. It doesn't, and people have told you that's not healable. You'll always have the whatever it may be. If you decide it, decide means to side. The root word side means to cut. Decide means to cut off. When you decide, it's different from choosing. If I choose to stop eating sugar, I can change my mind and choose the opposite anytime I want. If I decide to stop eating sugar, I've made a decision to cut off all other options. When you decide to heal, you've cut off all other options. Think of it like you placed an order for takeout. You've decided to place that order. You place the order. You're done. It's done. It's out of your hands. Now you can go meditate and wait until your dinner is delivered. That for me has been a very helpful thing to remember, to say, okay, you've decided it and you're doing the right work to address your nervous system and your mindset. And of course, the physical aspects of healing. And now you've just got to keep doing the right things, but wait for your dinner to be delivered,
Yeah.
basically.
I love that analogy because that's like if you stop and you question whether the food's going to arrive and then you call the restaurant, you're just delaying things or you're putting seeds of doubt that it's not going to happen. Yeah, the letting go.
You might confuse the delivery driver. He may be,
Yeah.
maybe I shouldn't come now, and he leaves. Right, exactly. Just decide and be done with it. So let's go back to the physical aspect. Someone who is having skin issues, we know that the skin barrier has been damaged. How does someone begin to restore that skin barrier, both from the inside out and from the outside?
Yeah. So part of having eczema is that your skin barrier is a little weaker. And that might be from chronic inflammation, because the more inflammation you have, the weaker the skin barrier becomes. Your skin barrier is made up of several layers, but the top layer or the outermost layer, if you imagine these little bricks, it's kind of like the gut sense because you have all these little bricks and they're held together by lipids, which are essentially like bricks and mortar, right? Like it's the mortar that keeps your skin nice and tight and elastic and supple. So in a healthy skin barrier, the bricks are tight and you can't penetrate through the bricks. Inflammation doesn't really reach the surface. So it's nice and strong. When you have eczema and chronic inflammation, those bricks start to become loose. And that's when irritants start to affect the skin barrier. It's when, if you don't have enough moisture in your skin, the bricks become dry and cracked and textured. It becomes a cycle. What you need to do from an external perspective is moisturization and hydration. As you're dealing with all the internal physical stuff, you do need to still address the fact that your skin is really dry, because if you don't, the skin barrier becomes weaker and weaker. From a very basic level of skincare, you want to, if your skin is damp, you want to lock in that hydration by, you can apply something that has hyaluronic acid, which helps to bind water molecules so that it stays on your skin and it penetrates deeper. So you want to do that first. Then you can put something heavier on top, like a balm or, a heavy salve that can just lock in that hydration. There's like layers to it, right? So go from light to heavy. And so that's what I was like slathering on my face with, very clean products, more natural balms and things like that from an external perspective to ensure that my skin, even though it was dry and flaky, I was adding hydration and moisture to it. And then from the
Mhm.
physical, like we talked about focusing on gut health and eliminating other toxins that I might have been ingesting.
So all the healing you were doing that we spoke about earlier, that's all your inside out and then the outside in. You're layering. I've heard Jessica Rose, a friend of both of ours, the author of Healthier Beauty and on our podcast, she says that, and this is exactly what you're saying, you want a water-based light moisture first. That could be your hyaluronic acid serum or water-based. And then, like you said, like
Exactly.
heavier salve that's that seals everything in. So how throughout this journey, gosh, you were in the beauty industry and your skin went haywire. Such an insult to injury. And beauty gets in our head from the time as women we're really young. This is beauty. And then we all struggle with how do we measure up or not measure up. What has changed in your view of beauty over this journey?
Yeah. What a good question. So, working in the beauty industry and being somebody that was very image conscious, after COVID ended and we went back into the office and my skin was really bad. That was probably the hardest part of it was in the mornings trying to layer on this makeup, thinking that maybe I could cover it and people wouldn't notice. I would go into work, and an hour later, I would start to feel my face heat up. I would feel that the makeup was separating, it was getting itchy. I had to run to the bathroom and try to apply more. But when you try to apply more on top of makeup, it doesn't sit right. And I would spend the rest of the day wondering if people were staring. And I was in a leadership position. I was expected to be in meetings, being vocal, contributing. And all I wanted to do was hide. All I wanted to do was pull my sweater over my head and not have anyone look at my face. And
Yeah.
so the beauty brand that I was at was a makeup brand. Everybody I was working with, very put together, very attractive people. And so that also feeds into not measuring up at that time, not feeling like enough to be part of this company or this team or looking the way that I did. It had a huge mental health toll on me, feeling shame and embarrassment. Ultimately, having gone through this and now I'm on the other side of it, I realize there's still so much for the beauty industry to understand in terms of marketing to women, not just from an external standpoint, but from really educating us on how to be healthier so that we can look and feel our best. And that is what translates to external beauty. We are seeing trends where more beauty companies are using real looking models, right? People who might have skin conditions, people who are not necessarily perfect and model-esque, and that's great. But still, it's not there yet. You still see images of women that you aspire to, you'll never look like them. And that still creates a lot of stress and internal friction of not measuring up, of not feeling enough. So there's still a ways to go. It's trending in the right direction. There's companies that recognize eczema as a chronic skin problem and that it's something that some companies have started developing some products to address, which is great. But yeah, we're not there yet.
And it goes back to what is my identity? Where does my true value come from? Our looks change based on seasons. Some seasons we're killing it, we're knocking it out of the park, and some seasons we're not. But they maintain that level of self-love and that identity of my worthiness is what's on the inside of this packaging. I love Bob Porter. He's an old time teacher about identity shifting and that kind of thing. And he says, we are spiritual creatures living within a physical body. We are not bodies, but this is not who we are. To go back to that identity, I think that's important for all of us to remember.
Yeah. On that subject of self love, I think when you go through something like that, you learn that your worth, to your point, is not measured by how you look or how much you produce. I think a part of me too was I was such a control freak. I still am kind of a control freak, but I measured a lot of my success on the things I was doing, on how much I was producing, my accomplishments and achievements. Having something like this happen really helped me take a step back into thinking about who am I, right? If I am not somebody who works in the beauty industry, if I'm not a podcaster, who is Kat inside? I haven't really figured it out. That's something everyone needs to. It's an ongoing question. But to your point about the spiritual being human experience, that's something that I've tried to tell myself is that, like the soul or your spirit is nothing nothing to do with how you look on the outside. It's really about who you are and what's in your heart. That shines through and ultimately creates the outer beauty, in my opinion.
I agree 100%. If we go back to our purpose and take that step back, that's a question for all of us. And hopefully it grows and deepens our self-love and that value. So if someone's listening right now and they feel stuck, they don't like what they're seeing in the mirror, and they're struggling with that self-identity, that self-concept, which we all do sometimes, what's one thing you want them to know that's actually possible?
Well, I want them to know that healing is possible. In my darkest days, it's easier said than done when you're past it, and hindsight is 2020. I can look back now and realize that all along healing was possible, but in the moment, I didn't think that.
Mhm.
I was worried every day about what I would find. So I would just tell this person that try what you can, do the tests, do the meditations, try to figure out the root cause of what's going on and tackle it step by step. It can feel very overwhelming when you are going through it. You don't know what to try first. I'm an example. I did acupuncture, light therapy, lymphatic drainage. I did everything, right? But I would say the first step is, if you can, get some tests done so that at least you know some of the physical markers that are happening, what they, and finding somebody like yourself to help guide them through that. But I would just remember that healing is possible because your body was able to get you to this point. It can get you out of it. It can.
Yes. Absolutely. I love that. And we don't heal in the same frame of mind that we got our condition or our sickness or whatever we're struggling with. We have to think beyond that and remember that meal is coming. If we choose to change that identity and paradigm, if we can be patient, trust that, be kind to ourselves and grace filled, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
One more thing. You kind of said it, but you didn't quite say it. So actually, I don't want to put words in your mouth. So tell me if I'm totally wrong here. But the perspective of this is happening for me and not to me. Because in that journey, look what you've learned
Mm,
about yourself. It was horrible and you'd never want to do it again. And we've all had those situations in life that have been horrible and we never want to do them again, but they change us. And the way they
yeah.
change us is almost always for the better.
Yeah, I didn't say it, but you're right. Hindsight is 2020. I don't know if 5 years ago when I was going through this, I would have thought one day I'm going to have a wellness podcast and I'm going to talk to women like Lisa. I'm going to spread awareness around chronic skin conditions. I did not think any of that, right? Like day to day, it was survive and heal. And now looking back, I realize that this situation, what I've overcome, gave me a purpose in my life today, that maybe even also working at a beauty brand for a beauty industry for a long time, all of this knowledge has accumulated. And now I feel prepared and inspired to share this message and help inspire other women to heal or to think about themselves differently. And I didn't have that before. So, yes, the purpose from overcoming hardship and obstacles. But someone who's going through it, you're not going to be thinking about, oh, I'm so glad I'm dealing with this chronic skin problem. One day I can tell people how to deal with it.
Right now, you're saying, Lisa, shut up. That is not true. In the thick of it, none of us want to go through crisis and hardship. That's really, really tough. On the other side, we can see things with new eyes to some degree. So tell us what you're most excited about that's coming up in the next year, or what are you working on? You've got this great podcast. I'll have Kat's information in the show notes. The Well Done podcast is amazing. But what do you have going on?
Yeah. Yeah, so growing the podcast for sure. Now that I've been podcasting for roughly 6 months, I've learned so much. And I think I've also learned about which angles I want to take it. Stay tuned for that in the next season of the podcast. Now, season 2 will come out next year. And the other thing that I'm working on is building a beauty brand for women who have chronic skin problems. And it's not just for women who have chronic skin problems. It's really for anyone who just wants better makeup. This is the brand that I wish I had when I was going through it, because I would wake up in the morning and pile on all of this product and none of it really worked or helped. I felt worse with it on than without it. I'm trying to create something for this person who's struggling a little bit or who just wants a really great product to wear daily.
Good, clean makeup that works.
Yeah.
Okay. And so how do people find out more about it? Keep in touch with you and keep track of your brand?
Yeah. Yeah, you can just follow me on Instagram at the Well Done Pod or my personal page. I'll start posting a little bit more about my founder journey. I haven't shared a lot about the beauty brand because it's still in its infancy, but as I start to solidify what these products are, which I'm in formulation right now, I'll share a little bit more on my personal page, which is I am Kat Vong on Instagram. And you can also learn more about the podcast at thewelldonepod.com.
Okay, thank you. We'll have it all in the show notes. Kat, I just have loved talking with you again today. So thanks for coming on and joining us.
Yes, thank you so much, Lisa. It was great.
And guys, thanks for joining us today and listening in. As always, I love when you're here week after week. I'll be back next week to chat with you. Until then, stay pretty well.